Evening, everybody. I am here. I'm just hiding. Hi, Peter. I'm assuming, you know, as always, I always do on these sessions, if you can just give me the thumbs up to say that you can hear me and the picture looks okay. Or if not, tell me it's not. Okay, cool. Hey, Kieran. Evening, Tony. Good to see you this week. Don't forget, folks, you don't have to put anything in the chat, but if you want to make any observations or have got any questions or requests or just bits of information for everybody, that's absolutely fine. This is, after all, a social evening where we can all get together and sort of, strangely, you guys watch me tie flies, which I enjoy doing, but you end up hopefully going away with a few ideas, or at least some indication of how not to do things at times. But anyway, so we're going to maximise tie-in again tonight, folks. We're going to try and tie 3 flies again. So the first fly we're going to try is the one that's in front of you. And this is although you can't see it at this angle, it's a flashback olive buzzer, but it's got this bright red throat. So I call it a cutthroat buzzer. And it wouldn't be one of my flies like this if it didn't involve a little bit of resin. I do like resin, as you know. But it's pretty easy and pretty straightforward to tie. This one goes out to Graham Webb, who's a new member of the Facebook group and also a new member to the fly fishing and fly tying fraternity. And he did ask me how to tie the flashback buzzer. And this is my take on it. The Olive was working really well at me on Springs this week. So, you know, if Graham's around, Graham, this one's for you. Okay, right, so see, I am here. I am just hiding behind. You can see more of the colour there as it's coming through. You can see that, you know, it's got lots of trigger points around in this. So let's get rid of this and start on a fresh one. Right, okay, for this particular buzzer, I'm going to use my ever favoured Fulling Mill check nymph hook, FM 5065s. I'd use them for everything if I could. I like a curved buzzer. They don't have to be curved, as we know, but I do like a curved buzzer. For this particular buzzer, I am going to use UTC thread. Okay, so this is 140, is it? No, 70 denier, UTC olive thread. I just like the sheen in this this olive for a buzzer. It's got this sort of goldy, almost pearlescent colour to it, but it also lays really flat. The reason I like this hook is because this shank section here, this tieable flat area, you've got quite a lot to play with before the curve, and I just like the profile that it gives. So I'm going to tie on some thread close to the eye this time because I'm going to maximise the space. I'm just going to put a thread base as flat as I can down to the hook point, around about here. Now this tag here, I want to keep hold of for the moment. Okay, so I'm not going to cut that off. That's going to form part of the fly in a bit. I'm just going to put that to one side. And then I am going to use, for the flashback, I'm going to use some Uni-Mylar. This is size 14. You could go smaller. For this particular hook on a size 12, you wouldn't want to go larger because it just enveloped the whole thing. And this is gold, silver backed. And it doesn't really matter which side you have up, to be fair. You can mix and match them. I quite like the silver, which means I've got to tie it in with the gold facing up towards me, so that when I double it back over, I get the silver on the underside. So to do that, I'm literally just going to bring it under, lift it, drop it on the top, because I want it to go right down the back and form part of the underbody. And I'm just going to put a lock-in turn or 2 in just to hold it in. And I'm now going to just position it just so that it's on the back of the back of the hook shank. And I'm going to try and keep it there as much as I possibly can. And with my thread, my fingers just pulling it back, and every now and then just stopping and just giving it a little tweak if I need to, and keeping the thread as flat as possible. I'm going to take touch-in turns down the hook shank and around the bend. And because I'm holding on to the tag end and the uni mylar, it's actually all coming touching turns now. It's all butting everything up. I'm going to bring it all the way around, and you can decide how far you want to bring it round. I quite like bringing them quite far round, and that should now be set. So when I double over the mylar across the back, it'll just sit as almost like a shell back across the back of the buzzer. At times it's an absolutely deadly buzzer to put on, particularly if they are buzzer feeding but they don't seem to be touching your buzzers. But just by adding a flashback to it can be that extra trigger. So I'm just going to unwind my thread. You can see there that it's laying really flat, and that's why I like this. And I'm just going to almost touch in turns, bring my thread all the way back up to the point of where I tied in the uni mylar, and then I'm going to stop. I'm going to give it a spin, get it to flatten out, and then I'm going to work my way back down. Didn't quite flatten as much as I wanted it to, so let's just do that again. There we go. That's much better, and it flattens out. So every 3 or 4 turns, just give it a little spin, get it to unwind. 3, 4, little spin. Now, I'm not going to take it all the way down because I'm sort of going to form almost a mini taper on the body. So I'm now going to bring it back up. 4, spin. 1, 2, 3, 4, spin. 1, 2, 3, 4, spin. 1, 2, 3, 4, spin. And depending on how chunky you want it, you can add more bulk to it. I quite like my buzzers to be very slim. It's just how I like to see them, and it certainly catches me fish. I will go down a little bit more, 4, just to show how it tapers up. And every time I go down, I'm just stopping about 2 to 3 mils from the last point at which I stopped, and then I'm just going to work my way all the way back up to the top. Now this tag end of silver foil here, I'm just going to trim off, but not really close, because I'm going to use it as an indicator as to how far up I want to go. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to take my flashback and I'm just going to bring it across the back. It will slip, it will slide, and you just take your time, you get it positioned where you would like it, and then you pinch it in place, and a pinch turn will trap it down on top, a lock-in turn, and then just take a moment just to have a look. It will have a tendency to try and slip either side, but another couple of lock-in turns now just to secure it in place is all that's needed. So we've now got the flashback here, and I'm just going to trim off and leave it a bit of a sighter there so I can see it. Now at this point, I'm just going to put a whip finish in, or a half hitch, just to secure my thread, because I do have a tendency now to knock it, and this is where this waist tag end comes in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a red Sharpie, and I've got this olive, and I'm going to just run it along the olive either side so it takes up the colour, and it makes a sort of a ruby colour, almost like blood. So just doing that. And let it dry. Give it a blow. If you're too quick to start wrapping with it, the Sharpie does have a tendency to just start to come off, and you get it all over your fingers. If you need to check, just run your finger up. Right, that is absolutely fine. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it round, and I'm going to wrap it in the opposite direction that I wrap my thread. But because it'll lay flat and I don't want it to do that, I'm going to twist it. I'm just going to give it a little twist in my fingers to tighten it up, to make more of a rope. Now as I wrap it, it will twist even more, so I don't need to keep twisting. And I'm just going to position each time my flashback to make sure it doesn't go out of position. And like all things, it's far easier to do it quickly than it is to do it slowly. And I'm just going to bring it in and just keep going up. You can make the segments wider as you get further up towards the thorax area to show differences in growth. And then I'm just going to lock that down with a locking turn, and that'll be fine to keep in place as long as I keep tension on. Second locking turn in, and now that's in place. And then I can just come in and I can just have a quick look at where my shell back is on here, and is it in the right position. And I'm just going to use my finger just to position it in place. There we go. And then I can tie down the tag end even more. There we go. I'm going to nip off that. So we've got the main body in with a nice little rib in. I'm just going to tidy up in this thorax area and run my thread back and forth a couple of times until I'm happy. Now, I always go on the hook point being my point at which I stop for my thorax. It gives me plenty of space, and these fully mill check nymph hooks give you loads and loads of space to play with lots of different techniques here, for us to be able to get these, to get all sorts of things working for us. Okay, now I want to build a thorax up. There's lots of different ways of building a thorax. You could use floss, something bulky to bulk it up. If you were putting breathers in, you might use white marabou or antron. I'm not going to do any of that at the moment. I'm just going to build it up almost cigar shaped using just thread. And at the moment I'm not laying it flat because the actual rope like effect is going to build bulk quickly rather than flat. The flat will come in when I just try and smooth it over. I'm just going to bring it up. Then I'm going to stop halfway in the thorax area. Now we're going to put in some cheeks, and I use an awful lot of crystal flash in lots of flies, dries included. I just think it's a really ubiquitous and universal material, and I've always got little bits of it lying around, so I don't want to waste materials. So I've got this bit from a previous fly. So I'm just going to cut about, what do I say that is? That's about 8 centimeters. 8 centimeters of crystal flash, and there's 3 strands. That's it. 3 strands of crystal flash together. And I'm going to use these to form my cheeks. So I'm going to place my crystal flash under my tying thread. I'm going to lift it up. I'm going to drop it on top, and then I'm going to slide them round so they're right down underneath. Now I'm not happy with where that is, so I'm just going to bring it to about there, and I'll do that again. There we go. And it's almost like a bow tie. So if you're doing a bow tie buzzer, this is how you tie in the bow tie on the top, but this time we're doing it on the bottom. And I've got that in place, and it's only in place with one locking turn though, so I'm just going to put a second on just to hold it, and then I'm going to take either side, and I'm just going to bring them, just made a complete mess of that. I'm just going to bring either side down the back of the buzzer, and I'm just going to put my finger there, and then I'm going to use this to form some of the bulk of the thorax area. I'm going to take it all the way back to where I finished the body, and at this point, if you want to, you can start making it a little bit bulkier again. It's completely up to you. You see these things in the water, they're pretty slimline, so big and chunky, not often big and chunky. Now I'm going to flatten it out, because I just want to tidy up the outer layer of that thorax, almost touching turns all the way back. I'm just going to stop about 1 millimeter or so before the eye of the hook. Now this is where I now take, and I've hopefully got 3 strands either side. I'm going to take my crystal flash, and I'm going to draw it forward, and I'm going to pinch it across the top of the thorax, round about there. I don't want it to be under, okay, I want it to be at the top, and I'm quite happy for it to lie flat, so as many of those 3 strands are flat as possible. I'm going to put a locking turn in just to hold them so that I can have a look. Yeah, pretty happy with that. And I'm going to put a second locking turn in, and then a turn in front just to cock them up, like so. Now, what I like to do with my buzzers when I'm doing this with synthetic materials is I like to take a needle. This is a Milner's needle. I have this 3/9 Milner's needle. Always pick up a pack every now and then because I constantly lose them. But they're useful because they've got a really beautiful taper to them, and they're not too wide. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to slide it between the thorax and the crystal flash. And it's not easy. I might have to come from it the other direction. And once I've got it under, here we go. There we go. Once it's in, like that, I'm going to take it to the widest part of the needle, and then I'm just going to move it back and forth from the front and the back. And what that is doing, it's going to start to pull the crystal flash out to give it a bit of a more 3-dimensional structure. So you're no longer in 2 dimensions. So if I do that, you can see that it's pulled it right out. Ooh. Let's see if it focuses. There you go. It's pulled it right out. There it is. It's pulled it right out. Now, if you find you've pulled it out too far, because that does happen, you can just go back in, isolate your 3 strands for that side, and give it a little tug, and then just repeat it. It's not a problem. It actually looks quite good when they are overinflated, because they give this indication, once we've got the resin in, then they give an indication of an air bubble, of the pupa rising up through the water column. So we're adding trigger mechanisms into our flies. And then I do the same on the other side. I'm going to try and match them. Notice I haven't cut the tag ends of the crystal flash off yet, because if I do make a mistake and I pull too much out, I can still correct it at this point. I'm just going to come in there. That's not far out enough, so I'm just going to give it another little pull on this side. There we go. So it's worth taking your time over, and we can see that we've got this almost a 3-dimensional look to it. Now we're almost done with the main tying part of this, so I'm now going to put some extra wraps across the top just to hold everything in place. And now I'm going to whip finish. 1, 2. I don't need lots of whip finishes. We're going to coat this in resin, so it's going to lock it all in place anyway. I don't want too much bulk at the front. Just give it a little push. Come in with my scalpel, cut that off. Now you could just leave it like that, and as a buzzer, you know, just coat it with Sally Hansen and stuff like that. You could just leave it. It doesn't matter at all. You can have this with breathers, which I did on the other one, which I showed you. So I cut them about here. But for this one, I'm actually going to cut them really short, about there, just so that there's a little bit of flash at the front. And at this point, this is where we come in with the resin. And I introduced you a couple of weeks ago to these sort of dental resin applicators. This is where they come in really, really useful. I don't know if any of you managed to get some packets of these. I know a couple of people did. And I'm just going to get a fresh one out. I'm going to come in, and on this particular fly now I'm going to build up, I just want it to be really slim in profile. I don't want it to be fat, I don't want it to be bulky. The more resin you put on, the more tacky it's going to be, because it won't cure as well or as quickly as we would like. And now it's a case of just applying resin to the body of the fly, to protect the flashback, but it really does make all the colours pop. And why not have some extra triggers? You know, who knows what the fish are thinking when they see it. I'll say, oh, that's a really nice buzzer with some poppy colours. I think I'm going to eat that. Now they're genetically wired to eat particular foods, and from experience they eat particular things. So at the end of the day, let's give them whatever we can to get them on the end of that line. So particularly for the main body segments here, I'm just dabbing it on. It's a sponge, so it's soaking it up, so I haven't got too much on there, giving it a really, really light profile. And I'm going to come in with my UV torch. I'm going to give it a blast. Just give it a bit of a rotation around. There we go. Now, I'm just going to turn it upside down and just adjust my camera. This is where it's all going to go wrong. Just going to adjust the camera. He says, just going to adjust the camera there. Are you going to focus or not? Oh, no, what's it done? Take it out there. Anyway, we'll get it to focus now. It's supposed to be able to touch the screen and focus it on a particular point. But it doesn't like doing it. At least not where I put my finger anyway. Okay, so all I'm going to do, I know you can't see this particularly well, is I'm going to put quite a large drop of resin now on my applicator, and I'm going to place it right in the center of the cheeks, because what this also does is give structure to hold the resin. And I'm just going to push it in there until I'm happy in the center of the cheeks. And this is where our 3 dimensions come in. Let's give it a blast, and they'll stay sticking out then. Giving that a blast, and then I'll repeat the same on the top. But I want the top to be, bring it back in. Oh, I knew I shouldn't have moved the camera. There we go. I don't want the top to be too bulky. I'm just going to put a fine layer across the top, just so that it meets there, and just around the cheeks, and give it a blast with the torch. give it a blast underneath. Okay. Now, I said this was a cutthroat buzzer, so I'm going to use my red Sharpie again, and I'm just going to come in underneath, and I'm going to colour in underneath the thorax, just under the thorax, in red. I'm just going to let that dry. You can already see some of the colour coming through there already. I'm just going to let that dry. And then I'm going to take some more resin. And I'm not going to move the camera this time because it'll just ruin it for the rest of the evening. So I'm just going to, I'm just turned it upside down in my vise, and I've put a little blob on top of what was already there. So I'm building up a layer of resin, and then I'm going to come in with my torch and give it a blast. There we go. So you can start to see it starting to develop into this red cutthroat here. What I can then do, if I wanted to, is you can then put more colour in it, and you could build it up even more. And this technique of building it up with the colours underneath it is, you know, if you start building up resin bellies on bait fish and things like that, you can actually get a really good effect. I saw Mark Roovers put up a post the other day. If you follow Mark, there's some beautiful bait fish pans, and I just sat for about half an hour just looking at them, just trying to dissect them in my head as to how he'd done it. And I think I finally did it. But it's a very similar process to this. Now, that's our buzzer completed. But as always, I like to come in with a very fine layer of Sally Hansen hard as nails. Just going to rub that across the top and across the bottom. In the rare occasion that I might get a bit of tackiness, that's going to harden, and that is pretty much indestructible, short of the hook breaking, which I doubt it would, and we'll catch fish. So I hope that was good. I hope you enjoyed that. Let's have a look at what we've got going while I have a little drink. So let's have a look. Right. Yes. Hi, Pete. Nice to see you. Hi, Adam. I'm trying to see. Right. So Phil. Yes. Golf resin. Golf Thinman. As usual on this one. Absolutely great stuff. Kieran, does the pen on the thread bleed when applying the UV? If I was using sort of a watercolor type marker, yes it would, but Sharpies they dry really quickly, even on polyester threads. So I find that as long as you give it a little bit of drying time, it shouldn't bleed. That's why I said just touch it, just give it a little, see if you get it on your fingers. If it's still wet on your fingers, just let it dry for a little bit longer. Yeah, Phil, we have this conversation every week, don't we? With Sally Hansen is essential over Bug Bond. You're absolutely right. And I still stand by that, absolutely, because I just could never get on with Bug Bond. I know lots of people do, I just can't. Don't forget, if you've got any questions, folks, throw them up. Silvio, nice to see you, nice to meet you. It's always nice to have new people. And Paul, you can see Paul's turned up. Hi, Paul. And I know you know Phil, don't you, and Colin. So Adam, colour variations. My three go-to colour variations for buzzers generally are an olive, a black, and a claret. Okay, but to be honest, you could do it in fluorescent colours if you're on a stock still water, and the Okie Dokie is a classic example of this. That the fish will take those. You know, if you're searching for switched on fish, more realistic colourings would be far better. Okay. Phil's running his bug bond down. Okay. I don't blame you, Phil, to be honest. Sorry, bug bond. Okay, right then, folks. So, and you can tie these down to really small sizes as well. I have great fun in the summer at Meon Springs at the catch and release very early in the morning. If I can get there for about 6:30 in the morning, 7 o'clock ish. And on the catch and release, when the fish are a little bit active before the heat of the day, and just almost check nymphing with buzzers across the top for the browns, and just sight fishing for them. And it, for an hour and a half before the temperature gets up, it's quite an electric way of fishing. Okay, let's move that one out. I'll take some photos of these as well, guys, because the photos will do them more justice than I can do on my current camera setup as it is. Okay, right. Let me just recalibrate here. Had it all set up. I knew I should have moved it. There we go. That's a bit better. Right. Okay. So second fly tonight, we're going to go back to the dry fly stable, and I was asked last week about putting in hackle tips as a wing. So I said, well, you never know. Let's get the Adams into play. So I do like tying an Adams, and I need to get more in my own box. So we're going to tie an Adams to start us off. It was named after the gentleman. I can't remember the name of the gentleman that tied it, but it wasn't an Adams, but he named it after his friend Charles Adams, who'd asked for the particular fly back in about the 1930s in the States. But it is such a ubiquitously wonderful pattern. It can mimic everything from an olive to mayfly to you name it. You just stick it on the top. The Adams is going to catch, and it's particularly buoyant. What I like about it again is it's a double hackled. It's got wings, which you don't have to put in. To be fair, you can tie it as a parachute. You could tie it as an emerger. You could do all sorts of things with it. Now, for this particular version, I'm going to use some grey thread. So I like to match my thread sometimes with the body material, but I'm actually going to use nano silk, Semperfli nano silk, in grey. It's great stuff, but what I can also do with it is lay it flat. It doesn't bulk up too much. It will take wax really well, but what it will also do is allow me to split thread if I need to. So for this particular pattern, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start about 2 mils away from the eye. And I'm using a partridge size 12 ideal standard dry fly hook here, and I'm just going to form a bed of thread down to around about the hook point, and then I'm going to bring my nano silk halfway up, about halfway in the thorax area, and I'm going to use scalpel blade. I'm just going to trim it off. Now, the reason I use a scalpel, as I've said a number of times, is because nano silk is really tough stuff and it's going to blunt my scissors. And it's cheaper to buy some scalpel blades than it is brand new scissors these days. For my wings, I've got a packet here. This was a cock cape. Right? This is a Whiting Pro Grey grizzled cock cape that I bought. And the postman delivered it along with a black one. Posted it through the door, and my cats got to it first. So it is in no particular order. And this is what it currently looks like. It's just a mass of feathers, and I managed to rescue it, but I really can't be bothered to grade them and go through them. So I tend to use this one for times when I need feathers for wings and things like that. And I'm looking for a couple of small feathers that I can use. I need to get them both the same if possible. And this is where the cats did a really good job on me, because they sort of had this sixth sense to actually destroy them not in a good order. So I'm just going to come in, I'm going to find my 2 feathers, they will do. I'm going to take those off and then put those back. And then I've got my 2 grizzle feathers here. Now I just really want the tips on these. That's why when I'm tying flies, and I've got one here. This is the tip end of a hackle that I've used and now I've finished with. Now that I'm going to keep hold of. I've got a little jar and I drop them in, and I use these for wings on my daddy long legs and things like that. So they never go to waste. So don't throw them away. But on this case, I'm just going to take my feather, and I want my wing to be about the length of, and a little bit longer than the body. So when it's standing up, it's going to be about there. So I'll just measure it, and I'm just going to draw back the barbules. Doesn't matter if you oversize it. You can oversize, you can undersize them, or you can just leave them off, to be fair. And then I'm just going to strip away these sections at the bottom like that with my thumb and my forefinger. Okay, so I'm left with, oh, let's get that. I'm left with just the tip there. Okay, so I'm going to put that to one side. I'm going to repeat that process for the second one. So I'm going to measure it against there, hold it, start drawing everything back, and just strip them off. I'm left with my second one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in and I'm just going to cut the base bit off. And I did what I was hoping I wasn't going to do. I just fired my feather across my desk. Right, I got it there. Got it back now. So I'm just going to take it like that. I'm going to come in. I'll hold the feather. And I'm just going to cut like that. And then what I've got is 2 wings that I can tie in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them back to back, so nice side in on each other. I want to use the natural curve of the feather to get them to sit splaying outwards. It's not always easy, and don't spend too much time trying to get it perfect. I'm just going to place it in. There we go. Right, and then I'm going to turn them round like so, and then I'm just going to offer them up to my hook. And what you could do at this point is you could run a little bit of wax just down the nano silk, because it just helps with the grip. Just a little bit of wax. So I'm going to come in, I'm just going to place them so that they're sat on the top like so, and I'm going to use a pinch turn to trap them onto the top, pull up, down and up, so that they're sitting on the top there. And I'm just going to take my nano silk down. You can see the profile, it's keeping it really narrow. And then I'm just at 45 degrees, just going to nip those off. And then start to move my thread down to the point at which the shank of the hook starts to bend. I'm just going to bring it up like that. Now we can put a tail in. I'm going to leave these here at the moment facing down, because otherwise they just get in the way. We'll worry about those in a minute. Now this traditionally, this has brown cock fibres for a tail, so here they are. But you could use a brown coq de leon if you wanted to, which would be absolutely fantastic. I've got one somewhere. Not quite sure where at the moment, but I've got one. But I just want one of these big feathers at the back that I'm probably not going to use for very much anyway. I'm just going to pull one of those out, and I quite like that black centre that's running through it, so I want quite a lot. So I'm just going to draw my barbules back like that, and this way I'm getting them all so that they're all standing out. And I'm just going to place them with my fingers. I want about a centimetre, because I know I can always remove some. It's always easier to remove them than it is to add them. So when you think you've got enough, you take hold and just give it a pull. And I've got them here in my fingers, and then I'm just going to roll them together. Just take out any errant pieces that are just a little bit too long, like so. And I've rolled them together like that to form it. And if I swap hands, you can see I've got quite a long section here. So I'm just gonna trim at an angle just those stubby ends off, and then I'm going to bring in my tail, and I want my tail to be about the length of the body. So there we go. Have it a bit longer if you like, and I'm going to use the same pinch technique to trap it on the top of the hook. And I'm going to bring it down and trap it down onto the bare hook like that, and then bring my thread up to my thorax area, and then bring it down. So it's at this point now I can bring my thread all the way down, and I can think about cocking up these wings. And I don't mean mess them up, I mean lift them up. So I'm just going to lift them back, and I'm going to put a little dam of thread in front of the hackle tips, and they will sit upright like that. And they're not doing too bad. What you can then do is just come in and just do a little figure of 8 in between, just to push them out side to side, so they're sitting like this. I really need to sort my camera out. So they're sitting like that. And if you find that you've got these errant bits here, just trim them down. Just come in with a pair of scissors. Trim off the bits that the fish are going to look at and go, oh, I can't believe he tied it like that. There we go. And then I'm just going to bring my thread back down. The great thing about this is that the nano silk has kept a real slim body on it. It hasn't built up loads of bulk, and I've used quite a lot of wraps there. Next stage, we're going to build up the body. Now the body traditionally is grey, muskrat grey. I've got this kapok, simplified kapok dub in here, and I'm going to use some. It's got a colour which strangely is called Adams, which has got a slight bluey purplish tinge. So this is a great pattern if you want to mimic an iron blue dun as well. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm going to take some kapok. There we go. I'm going to take some kapok, and kapok, all of kapok's flotation and life is in the fact that we keep it best to tie it so that it's not a fine noodle, that ultimately you want it to be quite loosely bound. So I've just got that there. I'm just going to reach over here. What we've done with it, there it is. I'm going to come in. I'm going to use some of this this Loon low tack swax on it, on my thread. And the reason I'm using this is because it is tacky, and I'm going to leave quite a lot of tack on here, because what I want to do, you can probably see there, what I want to do is I literally just want to touch the kapok to it, like that. And I'm not producing a dubbing noodle here at all. Now what I'm going to do is I'm then going to form a dubbing loop. I'm going to tie that down like so. Oop, fingers are all over the place. Lock that into place. And I'm going to bring my thread up to the thorax area, and I'm going to attach my dubbing spinner. There it is, my Stomfo dubbing spinner, to the loop. And then I'm just going to give it a spin. And what it does is it maintains the looseness of the kapok, and I haven't compacted it to get rid of all of that wonderful flotation that you can get with it. Now it's up to you how much you spin it. That should do for us at this moment in time. What I then like to do is I then like to come in with my hackle pliers. I'm just going to hold on like so, and I've got it, and now I can start to wind it in. So I'm going to build up a body from the back. There we go. Touching turns. When it getting thicker towards the thorax area, so you can go over 1 or 2 turns, like so. Go over the turns, like so. You can see we've got this bulkiness in here, and you can play with it. You can reduce it down, but I think the whole point is this is going to float, and we want it to float for forever, basically. That's the way you've got to think about it. So I'm going to take it up, and then I'm just going to tie off. 1, 2, put another one just behind, 3. Where's my scalpel? Come in with my scalpel and just nip that off. And I've got my quite buggy looking body there with lots of flotation running through it. Okay. Now, as I said earlier, it's a fly that's got a double hackle to it, ultimately, I'm just looking for the right feathers. I'm going to come back in. Have I got one here already? No, I don't think I do. I'm looking for a grizzle. So this is a whiting bronze grizzle saddle. And I'm looking for a suitable feather for a size 12. So I'm just going to come in, just do that. It needs to be a bit longer than that. I would use my hackle gauge, but again, I have no idea where I've put it. I was using it earlier on in the week, and now it's disappeared. Oh, that looks like a good one. So I can just do it just by gauging it. Yeah, that's great. That's great. So think about how many flies I can get out of that one feather there. Quite a few. I'm going to try and match that with a suitable brown or gingery brown cock hackle as well. So I've got 2 hackles. Okay, so there we go. I'm going to tie these in. Just nip those off. So when I tie these in, I form a little ladder at the end. So just by trimming the barbules off so that it bites and keeps in place, so it doesn't disappear. And you know, offer it up to the side, trap it down, and then I'm going to come and trap it down on the other side like so, and then bring my thread back round, and then this little end bit here, just use my finger just to push it down, trim it out. So that should stay in place, and then I'm going to do the same. Just make sure I've got the right bit. I'm going to do the same with my grizzle hackle. 1, 2. I'm going to bring it in. And again, I'm going to do the same thing. So 3, and there, bring my thread back round. Ooh. Nip that off. And then I'm going to come round, I'm going to bring my thread round to the front. And at this point, because I'm going to be messing around with 2 hackles, I'm going to put a little whip finish down here just to stop it from sliding off, and then I'm free to have a bit of a play. So I'm going to start off with the grizzle hackle. I'm going to try and put 3 or 4 turns, or 3 turns behind, not all tight, because I need to get that I need to get the brown hackle in. So I'm going to put 2 turns behind, and then a few more. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to bring my thread over the top, just trap that down, give it a wiggle so that I don't trap too many. And I'm going to come in and just relieve this front bit from the fly with the tips of my scissors. So there we go. So that's now in play. And then I'm going to do the same with the brown, but this time with the brown hackle I'm going to wiggle it back and forth so that I'm not trapping many of those grizzle barbules. I'm just going to bring it in front of the wings, and that's 2 in front. Just stroke it back. Oh, got too many just held there. 3 in front, and then I'm just going to put a 4th one right at the front just to give it that extra bit of coloration. So we've definitely got that lovely brown at the front. And then I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to trap that down. Don't worry if you catch a couple of fibers, it's going to happen. You've got 2 hackles in here, so that's 2 to trap it down. I'm going to come in 3, and because the nano silk is so slim and strong, it's going to hold it in place, and it's not going to produce a whole messy bulk at the front. So I'm just going to trim that off. Don't want that little one there. You can go. I'm just going to wet my fingers. I'm just going to slide those back like so, and I'm going to use this as an opportunity to build up a head of grey nano silk at the front, like so, and trim that off like that. Now if you wanted to, you could put a bit of red Sharpie on there to colour it so you got a red head. You could do that, but you could do anything with them really, and it's always about variation, as I've always said. 2, 3, 4. Nano silk slides really easily, locks in place. Scalpel comes in. Just push it against the scalpel. And then we have our Adams with the hackle point tips pointing out. We've got this nice kapok body on it. If I was to do this again, I think I'd redo the tail. I'm not particularly happy with that tail, but I'd fish it. That'll catch fish, that'll sit, that'll float in a riffle, and will definitely catch. You can then just put a little bit of varnish on the head if you like. I tend not to. Pretty secure with my whip finishes, but also just think it adds just a little bit more mass, and you know, we're trying to get these things to float in the surface film. So there we go. All right, time for another drink. And let's have a look. Oh god, loads. You've all been very busy. I've obviously been chatting about a lot. So where are we up to? Oh, hi Malcolm. Nice to see you, mate. Good to see you. Lots of love for the orange buzzer. That's good. Let's have a look. Malcolm, I shaved my dead cat. That's a whole different story. One for when I see you. So I've got this beautiful ginger dubbing that makes some fantastic nymphs. But he was too good to leave before we cremated him. So let's have a look. Oh man, I can't. Right, Malcolm's cooking. That's all I've got from this. Kieran, I was recently told dubbing split thread with K-Pock is the best way to ensure it doesn't noodle too tight and maximise floating potential. Yes, and hopefully I showed you a way to do that. Yeah, Terry, you're absolutely right, as you know. But there we go. So in terms of the atoms, you know, and you can use the split thread technique with that little bit extra bit of tacky wax to form bodies on absolutely everything. You know, it's a really effective way of not losing a lot of the natural flotation we get with air within the dubbing that normally we're compacting out to, you know, complete hell. If I wanted to do that, I'd use superfine dubbing or something that was really fine that, you know, is just going to form a colour or a body. For this, I want it to act as part of the flotation. And let's face it, K-Pop was used in life vests. You know, last thing you want to do with a life vest is compact it. Okay. So as always, I will take photos of these and get them up, folks. But you know, it's a nice little Adams. Again, if you wanted to, you could just burn off the underside here, or if you're on the water side, just trim them off to get it to sit however you would like. You know, sometimes the fish want a high floating dry. Sometimes they want something that's embedded into the surface. It really is up to you, to be perfectly honest. Thanks, Malcolm. Oh, okay. Oh man, is that an hour already? We've done 2 flies. Okay, so got a third fly. Now the third fly today is one that I dreamt about. And then I tied and I posted a picture in a couple of groups earlier on in the week, and it got a lot of love. I'm not saying that it's unique. I'm not saying that it's my fly and I came up with it, but literally I woke up and I just went, "Oh, that's a really good idea. I could do that." And it's probably because I probably saw or read something somewhere of somebody using similar materials and in a similar way, because that's the way my mind works. So the fly that we're going to tie, what did I do with it? It's up here. The fly that I'm going to tie is this lovely little CDC Olive pattern that can be tied to mimic olives, but can also be tied to mimic mayfly as well. You just change the colours up, you know, and you've got all sorts of combinations here. It literally uses including the thread, 1, 2, 3, 4 materials in this particular fly, but it uses some quite cool techniques that are worth just having a look at. Okay, so we'll just take that Adams out of the way. Okay, so I'm going to use size 12 again, ideal standard dry hook, and just purely for size, I would tie these down to an 18. I'm just going to tidy up a bit here, get this swax out of the way, because I'll put my arm in it and then I'll be wondering why I'm all covered in rubbish. For this I'm going to use Olive Nano Silk from Semperfli for the body on this, for the main thread, for all the same reasons. It's strong, it's durable, it's not going to produce too much bulk, and also it's really good for a split thread, which on this particular fly we are going to utilize that technique. So I'm going to leave again 1 to 2 mils towards the eye, and I'm going to run my tie-in thread, touching turns, using the tag end as my guide, all the way down the shank to the point at which I'm going. Oh, just messed that up. It's a barbless hook, so roughly going to judge where a barb might be on this particular hook, and then I'm going to stop there. And I'm going to take my tag end, use my scalpel, just trim that off. For the tail on this, I'm going to use some Coq de Leon, medium Pardo. I've probably got one of these on the desk somewhere, but you know what, I wouldn't be able to find it, and I'll find it really easily later on. So I'm just going to come in, I'm just going to take another feather out. You get loads in one of these little packets. You know, it's a strung packet. You get loads of these. There's enough on there to keep you going for God knows how long. So I'm just going to take this front feather, I'm just going to remove it from the string, and place it back in, because as we know, Coq de Leon is expensive and I don't want to lose it, which I have a tendency to do, or give the cats any opportunity to grab hold of it. So the medium Pardo's got this beautiful barring on it, and I want the speckles to really sort of zing on the tail on this. So I'm going to take a reasonable amount. I'm just going to pull them so that they're sticking out at 90 degrees to the stem. There we go. I'm going to pull them down. They're not going to be absolutely perfect at this point, but I do want them to be as close as I can. And I've got about what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 20 barbules there. So I'm just going to grip them and give them a pull. I've taken way too much off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, I'm just going to trim off the little curly bits. There's a reason for doing that, because at this point what I want to do is I'm going to use a little hair stacker, and I'm going to place them in, and I'm going to stack the Coq de Leon fibres so that they're all at the same length. So I'm just going to drop those in, give it a little tap, open it up, and you can see there they are. I'm just going to take hold of those, pinch them, give a little roll in my fingers. You can see I've got this really quite nice shaped tail to go on now. And if you feel that it's not exactly how you'd like it to be, restack them. But it doesn't matter if they're not perfect. Now I want the length of my tail on this to be about the length of the body and a little bit. I like a long tail. And ideally I want to tie it onto the bare part of the hook. So I'm just going to place it on the side, and I'm just going to loosely wrap and make sure that it's on the top of the hook. Put a second locking wrap in. Now it's at this point, if it's too long you can give it a pull. If it's too short you can also give it a pull. But I'm reasonably happy with that. So I'm just going to trap that down, and then I'm just going to use my thread just to build the body up. Where's my scissors? So I'm going to come in and snip these off at 45 degrees, like so. I'm going to bring these in, and like the Adams, I'm doing this in the reverse direction to the Adams. I'm going to need my winging material, which about 20 seconds ago was right in front of me, and has now decided that it's going to disappear. Let's see. bear with me. Right, it's always the way, isn't it? So here I've got some teal feathers. I don't think we use teal enough in our tying, and I'm just literally going to find a really large teal feather. There it is, large teal feather. And what I'm after is this beautiful barring for the wing. So, like I did before, I'm going to take a big bunch of teal and just pull it off the stem. It never comes off exactly as you want it to. I'm just going to trim that off. I want quite a clump. It really is quite a clump. And the reason I've got more is because, as I said before, it's easier to take stuff away than it is to add. So I've got slightly more than I need. I've got some smaller fibres here. So I'm just going to strip those out. Strip those ones out. Don't want those. And there we have it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, you can see that the teal's got a natural curve to it. Anything that's going in the wrong direction, I'm just going to strip those out. And I'm going to now take my teal and I'm going to place it on the top. And I want it about, like we did with the Adams, about the length of the body and a little bit. I'm just going to place that on. Okay. It will occasionally come apart. Don't worry too much because we're gonna rescue that. I've got it in the wrong direction now. There we go. I'm just going to place it there. Take your time, and I'm going to use my pinch turn down around and trap it on the top. A couple of turns just to put that in and tighten that in. And then I'm going to take this back bit here and just trim that off. And then I'm going to tie that down and just tidy it up. Now again, I'm just going to leave that line down. I'm going to worry about that later. And now we can start to think about the body material. So the body on this, literally I'm going to use a CDC feather. I want it quite long. These are Petitjean CDC feathers, so they're beautifully long, beautifully fibred. And literally, I'm going to tie it in at the tip. So I'm going to bring all the barbules up, like that. And then hold it there. Place it on the hook shank. Lock it in place. And then draw it back. Tying backwards as I go. Don't worry if fibres and barbules slip out. You want that to happen. And then I'm going to tidy it up with the underbody so it's now far more tapered than when we started. There we go. And now I'm going to leave my tying thread at the top up here. You could put a half hitch or a whip finish. Now the body here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to use my hackle pliers. I'm going to attach them to the stem. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just twist it a couple of times. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Don't twist too much because it will just snap. So 3, because every time you make a turn now with it, it will turn and twist again. So I'm going to bring it over the top and I'm going to use it in touch-in turns to work its way all the way up the body. Give it a couple more twists. If it's not twisting as much as you would like, and you're going to get these bulky bits of CDC that are going to form forwards and towards the back. I got it there, and I'm just going to come in and just tie that down like so and trim it off. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm just going to use my scissors and I'm just going to trim down the CDC to form a carrot shaped body. Now remember that the CDC's got natural oils to it, so I know that we've used it and wound it, but it's going to still maintain its floating properties. Come in, there we go. I'm just going to trim it down. You can see we've got this quite a nice looking shaped body. Take your time, give it a trim, run your fingers down it, make sure you're happy. And now we can concentrate on our wing. So with the wing, again, I'm going to perform a thread dam at the front to push them up. Unfortunately with nanosilk you've got to do that quite a lot, so there it goes, pushed it up. And you could just leave them like that. What I like to do is I'm going to bring a needle and I'm going to run it down the center. I'm going to split them into two sides, left and right, equal amounts hopefully. I'm just going to hold them to the side, and then I'm going to figure of 8 across the middle. Like so, and just give them a pull back again because they're not cocked back as far as I would like. Just build up that thread dam in the front, and there we go. And what you find is you do get fibres that stick out, so this will test your dexterity. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, like you would with a parachute hackle, I'm going to wrap my tie-in thread around each side loosely, like so. So it's forming it into a nicely shaped wing, like that. I'm going to bring it round. You could do this quite loosely. Oh, just caught it on the tail there. And just drop it there. And turn it to face me on this side. And I'm going to do the same. You could use a gallows tool to help you here. I just can never be bothered to get my gallows tool out. So I'm just going to concentrate on just looping it round. 1, 2. It forms a nice little base at the bottom. And that one's just a little bit, there we go. Just cock it back up so it splits them perfectly. And then I come round behind with my tie-in thread. Okay, so we got our wings cocked up. Any errant bits that you're thinking, right, no, that just doesn't look right, just come in and trim them out. There you have it. So for the hackle, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to use my CDC again, but this time I'm going to use 2 feathers. I want 2 that are around about the same size. Thankfully in these packets they're all pretty much equal. And I'm going to place them so that the natural curve is like that. I'm going to hold them by the tip. I'm just going to draw back all the fibres like so, and I'm going to use, this is a hairline feather prepper, so I'm just going to, it works exactly the same as the Petitjean clips, but it's got multiple sections to it. I'm just going to push them down into that. There they are, so they're sticking all upright. And then I'm going to come in, I'm just going to trim off the end bit there and the end bit there. And then I've got my clip. I'm going to come in, I'm going to take hold of it in my clip and hold the clip and just pull it out. So I've got my CDC ready to go in. And then, as always, can't find my big scissors. Those ones will do. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to trim away the stem. See why big long scissors are easier to use on these. Just trim away the stem, and I've got my CDC ready for my dubbing loop. Now, in terms of the dubbing loop, I'm going to use this on the nano silk. So this is where my this is the Petit-Jean thread splitter. It's definitely worth the money. Thank you, Kieran. I'm just going to run it along just to flatten out the thread, and then get my finger in place and just surgically split the thread like that. Because this is so thin and so fine, it's not going to break. It's really strong, really is strong stuff. And I'm going to take my CDC, I'm going to place it in the split thread, and I'm going to position it so that I've got most of the CDC outside. So I'll bring it up and trap it in place. Now, so at this point, I want to spin it. But I want to spin it so that I actually get the fibres rotating around, but I don't want them too tight. It's not the easiest thing to do it on here, so let's bring that up there and just spin it. When you're happy with the density of your hackle, because that's what we're doing, we're making a hackle that's going to be, that we're going to wind around the front of the fly to act what would normally be the cock hackle. There we go. And I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to put 1, I'm going to draw everything back, 2, draw everything back, and I'm going to move to the front, 3, draw everything back, 4, draw everything back, 5, draw everything back, 6. It looks like we haven't got any room, but when you pull it all back, there's plenty of room there at the front. So I've got 6, I could probably get another one in there, 7, and in we go. And I've got this spare here, which I can just strip out, that's not a problem. And then I'm just going to draw that back, and I'm going to use my thread to build my head up at the front, like so. Get rid of that. There we go. You can see the wings are just sitting just on the inside there. I'm just going to take my whip finish tool and we're done. Nip that off. So you get to play with it now. So we've got lots of long fibres here. So I like to come in and just nip out the long fibres. Just so you're forming a sort of natural hackle shape. Don't cut them, just give them a little pluck and they will just come out. And then give it any that are facing too far back, just give them a pluck out like that, like so. And I haven't fished this. This is just literally, but I reckon that's going to float like anything. I can envisage next month taking a few fish on that, and even in very small sizes. And there we have it. My dreamt concept. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you liked that. and the lighting's poor today. Let's see what we've now got coming up. Right. You're not skimping on the K-Pock or the red wine. I'm actually drinking a beer today, Phil. A Thirsty Ferret. I don't often drink beer, but definitely. And I think, in terms of the K-Pock, don't skimp on it. You get the best out of it by having a lot of volume there. So Mark Pettyjohn's pliers then, Kieran. Right, I look forward to next Christmas. Cool. Okay. Yeah, it does look a bit catskilly. I do like a catskill fly, Hendrickson and things like that. So yeah, Phil, you're absolutely right. Do I use CDC collars on my check nymphs? Yeah, absolutely. But to be honest, I tend to use more partridge for mine on my nymphs. It's just what you'd like, really, isn't it? The CDC is a really good material. Okay, so I hope you thank you, Neil. Lots of great techniques, and Rob. Yeah, so ultimately, these are going to be flies that I'm going to fish with. These are going to be flies that I'm hopefully going to catch fish very, very quickly with, and they're flies you can use throughout the season. Absolutely. So give them a try. See what you can come up with, or even just take one or two ideas away and apply it to a fly that you tie a lot. Just change it up a bit. Just you're tying an olive. Don't use an olive cockhackle. Use an olive CDC and just pimp up your normal patterns and just see what difference that they make. If they don't work, they don't work. But trial and error ultimately is the way in which we move forward. This keeps jumping. Technique always, Phil. Technique trumps pattern. You get the techniques in play, and the rest just comes, and you can tie multiple different flies. Just imagine this one with with a yellowish body, yellow tan body, and a brown, a CDC hackle, and slightly larger wings, and you've got and a slightly longer hook. You've got a mayfly, straight away. Put a little brown rib on it as well. Absolutely fantastic. You could even have two colours of CDC for the hackle. So you just place one inside the other and push it in, so that it's sandwiched. That could be that could be really effective. So you could turn it into a March Brown as well. The world's your oyster, folks. The world is absolutely your oyster. So you've listened to me prattle on for an hour and a half now, and hopefully it's been useful. As always, I'm always on the site, so on the Facebook group page. So if you've got any questions or you want to post up examples of what I might have enthused you to tie, feel free. I do like to see that, and definitely if you catch. Okay, so I will leave you for the rest of your evening, and next week I'm going to take a week off next week, but I will be tying for the Ludlow fly tying group on the Thursday evening, and then I'll be back the following week with some more patterns to have a look at. If you've got any requests, please ask, and we can see what we can do. But enjoy the rest of your evening, and have a good weekend, and enjoy the rugby if that is something that you're going to watch.